Hello, welcome back for part two of my investigation of capitalism's tendencies towards crisis and breakdown. And I'll be looking at whether there is, according to at least the labor theory of value, an inherent tendency towards crisis and breakdown. And also, if there is there any way that we can get around it? Are there any steps we could take, in the economy to overcome those barriers, those tendencies towards breakdown? That's what I'll look at with my expanded reproduction table. It was very much inspired by this somewhat less complicated one of Henrik Grossman's that he made in 1929 by hand on pencil and paper. Thankfully nowadays we have the wizardry of computers to make this so much easier for us and to allow us to do so much more with it. So let's jump in and see what we find when seeing how an economic system plays out according to the labor theory of value. Okay, so, and this will make much more sense if you're already at least a little bit familiar with labor theory of value and that article by Henrik Grossman. But let's go to what's probably the most important part of this reproduction table to start off with, which is basic origin of the capitalist profits. Okay, here's the mass of surplus value that the capitalist gets. Okay, so overall we have we have two costs going into the production equation. Okay, a capitalist gets up at the beginning of the day. His plan for making a profit is to combine constant capital, which is, say, machinery, physical means of production, with variable capital, that is to say, wages, to produce a certain output that will hopefully be more than the combined total of his costs, which in this case is 60,000. And we find that the capitalist in this case is successful. He produces 80,000 gold ounces rather worth of goods, giving him a surplus value of 20,000. So all seems well and good here. And by the way, I'm using I've labeled all the money amounts in terms of gold ounces. That might seem a little strange at first, but there's an important reason for that. It's basically the fact that to keep track of value, you want to really use commodity money rather than fiat money as a stable measure of value. It just simplifies things if you measure things in gold rather than dollars. For various reasons, if you want to understand more of why that is, I would recommend reading these two blogs, therealmovement.wordpress.com and A Critique of Crisis Theory. Both of these blogs will explain the importance of commodity money in Marx's theory, labor theory of value. But I just wanted to point that out. So yes, that's the basic production equation. So the capitalist ends up with this massive surplus value in year one of 20,000, and this gets divvied up into three different parts. Some of it needs to be set aside for expanding the machinery, the constant capital for next year, for expanding production, stowing away some seed corn, so to speak, so that you can grow more corn next year. Some of it needs to be set aside for increased wages to be paid to, for workers to work increased hours, also part of that expanded production. And then the rest of it, the capitalist gets to keep for his or her own personal consumption. And you see here in year one, capitalist keeps the vast majority of his 20 gold ounces in profit as for personal consumption, for travel, for yachts, for fine dining, and so on. And only very small amounts need to be set aside for expanding reproduction for the next year, when all of a sudden you see you started in year one with 40,000 being employed, constant capital. Okay, part of the production was reproducing that value. The first thing the capitalist needs to do is make sure that he at least produces enough to cover his costs, and then comes the surplus, right? So he still has that constant capital from last year that he's reproduced, and then in addition to that is the newly invested constant capital. You see right here how this carries over. And same thing here for the variable capital, carrying over there. So now we have expanded production, and we have an expanded output, and we also have expanded gold for the capitalist personal consumption. All right, so all of this seems to be going very well, right? Everything's growing. This seems like a capitalist economy in full swing of growth. All signs seem to be pointing upwards. What could possibly be going wrong here? I should mention also, not only is the capitalist gold for personal consumption growing, but the cost of products is decreasing, because at the same time while this is happening, the capitalist is investing in constant capital, and as a result of that, productivity is increasing by 2% a year under the assumptions of this scenario. So thanks to the capitalist's investment in machinery, the capitalist is getting, in his production, is getting 2% more productive, more efficient, per year. So products that are produced from this have each year 2% less socially necessary, labor time embedded in them, or basically 2% less value. So they're getting cheaper to produce as time goes on. So when you combine that with the fact that the capitalist gold is increasing, you can see the capitalist purchasing power of use values, that is to say of consumption items, is increasing from year one. Here's basically a scale factor of what that would be, and you see, by year, what is this, 16 or so, capitalists can buy twice as many chairs or twice as many Carnival cruises as before. So this all seems to be progressing well. I should mention also, according to the assumptions I have going, this is even allowing for a slight increase in workers' standard of living as well. All right, so technically workers are getting paid less in gold as these years go on initially, but or rather in this column right here, but the gold needed to buy their subsistence useful articles to survive basically is also going down. These items are getting cheaper to produce because of that increased productivity. And so I have an assumption here that you see over here we have a productivity increase of 2% each year. I have workers capturing half of that, or 1% a year. And what this means is that the capitalist business owner only has to increase, or rather can actually decrease the wages by 1% a year that he pays out to the workers, and yet the workers will still have a 1% increase in their standard of living because their consumption items are getting cheaper by 2% per year. So actually the standard of living here for workers is increasing, and here's a scale factor of how much their standard of living is increasing over time. So even the workers are doing well at this point, and there is not even any unemployment in this early part of the reproduction. So next time we'll see how all this breaks down despite this good beginning.